And we have today a special guest, right? We have a fencer that at multiple World Cups represents the French senior national team for men's epee. Based on the research that I've done and Yannick's help, we know you have posted a top 16 result at a World Cup in Bern. We see you quite a bit in various World Cups making top 64s. I know you're a NAC champion, as I spoke for the previous coach of yours. And we have Romain Cannone himself here, all the way from France.
By the way, we shouldn't forget that Romain was medalist of the World Championship and European Championship, am I right?
Medalist of the World Championship, that's right. Sorry, I got so excited, I forgot about that.
So Romain, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
How are you doing? When you're here now, you're in France, and you're looking back at your path. Can you talk about a little bit where were your beginnings? How did you start in fencing?
Started at NYFA. So my cousin was fencing when she was
New York
little,
Fencing
and so
Academy,
I brought
you mean, right?
to NYFA, yeah, to New York Fencing Academy.
Yeah.
So I started. It was before I trained. Misha used to coach at Brooklyn Fencing before opening his own club.
Okay.
So that's where I first met Misha, my coach. And so it started because my cousin was from France and she wanted to do a camp in the US for foil. And instead of sitting like a parent, I joined the fencing and tried for the first time and stuck to it. And so, yeah, it was a long journey with Misha. And then eventually I also was coached with Dima Chumak, who was also in the Ukrainian team.
That's right. You went through the whole Ukrainian coach beginnings.
Yeah. A very good
circle of friends.
very good athlete also.
Yeah.
So that was my that was my early
So
time.
talk a little bit about like what kind of level of fencing did you achieve while you were with New York Fencing Academy?
So what level I achieved? So when I was a junior, I was in the top 10 in the nationals.
Okay.
Sometimes 8, sometimes 12, sometimes 6. But I wasn't as good as a junior as I am now as senior. I didn't have such a good cadet, or I wasn't a great cadet. For example, I did win some competitions, and then in junior I won some NACs. And I always did good at nationals. But I never did a lot of first place, or I only won one time, I think.
But it's still,
then I moved to
achievement.
France. It's still good. And after you always want to win, and that's the problem of many young people, is that they always think that they can win. I totally agree, but you need to put the work in, and it's not that easy. And so I decided to put the work in and move to France because I didn't like the university, and it was a long time to travel to my old club and to train with my coaches. But I think that
So it was basically your decision to move to France? It wasn't like your family had to move, you wanted to move there because of fencing?
Yeah, I moved. My parents stayed in New York, actually. So I'm the only one who moved. Yeah, I moved by myself.
I was talking to Misha once and I was asking him what was your strength when you were fencing, because he told me like when you got to Misha's Romain coach, but when I was talking to him, he told me like you wasn't that physically good for fencing, like you were slim, you were tiny boy, right? But look who you are right now, you're one of the best fencer in the world, and like what is your strength? What are you using for fencing?
I think that there's no, what's good about fencing is that there's no perfect physical. It's not like an running or, jumping where you need to be very tall or very skinny. Or in fencing, you just need to be good in fencing, actually. So you need to train hard. That's the one main key. Train hard, know yourself mentally and physically. I think that one thing that you learn when you grow up in fencing and in sport in general is that mental plays almost half the game. And if I could give one advice, is that, you know, train mentally also. It's super important, not just physically. And so yeah, now I know I know myself very well. I know what's good for me for training. I know what to eat. I know how to prepare for competition.
But you remain, you've been through a lot of competition during the season, right? Like in US, in France.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you telling us that you have to be mentally prepared for the competition. How are you preparing yourself for a certain competition? It doesn't matter what level of this competition, but what helps you to be mental stable and execute well with no emotions, with no pressure at all.
So it's a very tough question, and I still didn't
It's
answer
for
it.
tough questions for all of us.
That's why we're asking you. We're trying to find out some information from you.
So yeah, I mean, even as coach, to tell your students, you know, how to prepare mentally. I mean, everyone's different. For me, for example, I was never physically very strong or very tall, but I always loved the game of fencing. So I love to vary the fencing. And so that's one thing that I kept in mind, is that when I'm not doing good, especially in competition, I try to have fun again. So vary my touches and try to have take the fun back in the game, because sometimes when you take it too seriously, you kind of oppress yourself and you don't think anymore. You just say, okay, these are my good touches, and that's what I'm going to stick to.
That's true, because when the game getting more tough, more serious, when it's 14-14 and you cannot execute because you're under the pressure, it's not going to help you, obviously, right? So you have to take a risk. And you said, like, you have to play this game, right? You have to overplay your opponent. Whenever you overplaying it, you can win this bout. But whenever you're afraid of making action, it's this road doesn't go anywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, and
exactly.
Also,
it's kind of like ping pong.
Romain, on the game.
Like I fenced many games and many bouts, and yeah.
Like you can answer, but I'm just saying in general, like besides that, are you also good at any other sport? Like pretty good. Like can you enjoy playing a game of soccer or some other sports? Or you're only good at fencing? What do you think?
No, I do actually a lot of sport. I'm not bad at soccer, but I'm not great. But I do a lot of rock climbing, and I do also some surfing.
I saw some posts on your Instagram. You're pretty good at this.
Sometimes. And that's the reason why I'm saying this, because me and Yannick, we on a first podcast, we were talking about, and this is something that I really was talking about, how like a lot of fencers are not very good at any other sports, especially what we see, the fencers that we deal with here, right? They're only good at fencing. But by playing other sports and actually practicing to become better at soccer, maybe rock climbing, especially the sports that have a game, really will make you a much better fencer, right? Would you agree in terms of mental preparation?
There's, I mean, before starting fencing, when it's not it's kind of a sport, but like one thing I used to do a lot is chess. So I love chess.
You're developing your minds, right? That's cool.
Yeah, and so I think that, for example, chess is it's very good for fencing, because you're trying to always adapt and trying to see how your opponent is going to play, and that's the basis of fencing. You can be the best athletic. I fence people who are 2 meters tall and 90 kilograms. I can't say that I'm gonna win based on physical.
For instance, you fencing Yannick Borel, right? I used to fence him. I was struggling fencing him. It's like my nightmare, right? So, what about you? Like, you know him more, like you know him better than me, right? Because you've been fencing him maybe every day. Yeah, but you're not that tall as him. You're not that heavy as him, but he is mobile. He's moving good. His technique good. His strategy is good. What solution you find to fence these guys like Yannick Borel?
So the solution is by first understanding your weaknesses. So I know that I'm not going.
Sorry, can you repeat please one more time the same, but because you're glitching a bit.
Yeah. No worries. It's okay. We're in two different continents, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So I was saying that with Yannick, the one thing is that your weaknesses. You say, okay, what am I not good at? Well, for example, for me, I'm not strength side, so I'm not going to overtake Yannick Borel, for example. But I know that I'm very fast, or faster than him at least. So I know that I have to always be moving. If I slow down, or he slows me down with his rhythm, I know that I'm going to lose, because he's just going to do a beat straight or a very strong flash. And even if he does I'm in a good distance, I won't be able to take 6. So what I do is that I move and I do.
Yep. So it's like a chess match, right? So you're understanding his strengthness, you're understanding your strengthness, and you're trying to combine this both strengthness and what's going to work against this strength, right?
Exactly.
So you're picking up your skills, what's going to be working against him. And you're going to stuck with these actions, and you're going to build up a strategy based on these actions, right?
For Yannick, for sure. For Yannick, I always do a lot of fakes and traps, and I hope he falls into one trap. And that's usually what happens when I win games. It's because I mix all my good touches, or I mix all the touches with the good rhythm, and so that he falls into one of the traps. But if I wait for him to do an action or follow him, then I know I'm probably going to lose the match. So that's, okay. I would say, like, one thing I would recommend is that first try to keep a note. Like, for example, us athletes in France and in many countries, we keep a notebook, like a diary. So we're back to high school. But it's a good diary. It's a diary for yourself, and you don't share it to anyone because it's your strategy book. And so you have to understand, you have to understand what you're not good at. So, like, for example, I'm not going to say what I'm not good at.
About the diary, Romain. I was in sports academy when I was young. When I was 18 years old, I had a diary. I was noting everything, like, in my diary, and like you said, you have to keep it to yourself so nobody see it, right? And my friends who used to live with me, they knew that my book is under mattress, and they read all of my stuff. Yannick was preparing for this section, Yannick's been training for this section, and they said, like, okay, Yannick, I know what to do against you, like, let's go, let's fence. But they didn't mention that I'm adapting very fast to the new actions, and I'm too confident in my skills, so I can build up the other strategy. That's the reason that people can change themselves during the bout. It's basically, like, this is, like you mentioned, it's a chess game. That's what we have to play it.
Yeah, and it's also the idea that as you move through, years or like seasons, you forget a lot of what you say, or like what you think. But by writing it down, you don't forget. And then, for example, like when this season, one of my problems was fencing Epee, for example. So what do is that I look at his videos, I look at our matches or his match against other people, and I try to analyze and then have a plan. And I think that the best fencers, they always have a plan to fence someone. Even if they don't know him, they will either figure it out on the strip during the match. They say, okay, this works, this doesn't work, just like chess. Or you know him very well. He's at every World Cup or him at competitions. I know he likes to do this touch, or he likes to do this touch against me. So I'm not going to let him.
Got it. So the conclusion
this small strategy already, it saves you a lot of time and less stress.
So conclusion is you have to have a plan before you start fencing your opponent, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of,
that's cool.
But the idea is to have a plan. You can also think, like, you don't have to have it before the match. Otherwise, you might get stressed. You say, okay, I don't have any plan. What am I going to do? It's okay. But I think that when you're young, one thing you should try to work on is that the beginning of the match is to understand your opponent. It's okay if you lose touches. if you're
But
trying.
you playing, you sacrificing your pawn. It's okay to lose a touch, but you learn so much more. How do they score on you,
It's the
right?
same idea. I think that a match that's not going very well in either side, it's when it's going ping pong. We say like in France, it's when it's -1 +1, -1 equal -1 +1. This is like kind of these matches where neither has a solution on the other opponent.
And I can actually get to one of your bouts like that. So actually, last night I was doing a Zoom session with some of my students, and we were watching one of your bouts. And I actually knew one bout to watch. It was in Bern when you were fencing against a Luxembourgish guy, Joannette, right?
Oh, he's a strong guy.
Yeah,
He's been
and
fencing
well, the bout went.
many
Yeah.
years.
I don't know if you remember it, but there was a point in time when Romain, you were down 9-4 or even 10-4 against him, and it was just all the touches. Even though he had a big lead, you ended up figuring out.
But I found the solution, and that's
right.
that's what I was trying to say. It's like once you have the solution, it's almost like it's not a certain win because you have to put the work in, and he has to start feeling like he's losing control. But it's a lot. Okay, I'm not going to. It's not finished, you know.
Yeah, you're on Romain. You were a little bit glitching, and we heard like the last part of your
That's okay.
sentence. Yeah, but it's okay still.
What I wanted to also talk about is that you have an interesting.
Yeah, I was just saying I was just saying for Janote. I was just saying that for Janote, one thing that's very good is that
Nice thing.
it gives you a lot of mental strength.
Yeah.
You know, lots of motivation.
Yeah.
To put the work in, of course, to make the touch, even if you have the solution, and he has to start feeling like he's losing control. But it's a very good booster. And for kids who don't have a lot of confidence, I think that being able to find solution like this can almost win you competition sometimes, because after you understand how to do the whole competitions. That's what I meant by plan, because that's like a perfect example of me not knowing how to fence someone, and during the bout finding the solution, even if I'm down by a lot. But this works both ways. Sometimes I had a solution. I didn't have the solution, but was winning on someone, and he found the solution on me, and he started winning, even though I was winning by a lot. So that's the whole strategy, and I think that's like one of the key of fencing is this for sure.
Yeah, cool. You know, Romain, I'm now at FIE official website right now. I'm just checking your stats at FIE. I'm just looking at your last season. So I see that you were 15th at the World Cup in Bern, right? So you got top 16 there, right? Then you didn't do well in Germany, but then you got again top 64 in Doha. Then you got top 32 Vancouver and Budapest again. You didn't do well. So what do you think? Why your results going up and down during the season? Why isn't going like pretty decent results? Like, I mean, every time you good or down.
Well, I think that one thing I'm trying to this year is to stable my game, to try to stabilize as much as possible, because I like to create touches. I call myself like a creator. Some people are more like defensive. I think you look at someone like Bogdan Nikishin. He's more someone who's going to use the other person to his advantage.
That's right. It's again like a chess match. He tries to get opponent to fall in.
He's been fencing for all of his life with the same style. You know, circle six, and so on. Flick, circle six.
All these years to get better.
Yeah, but we're talking about.
He's been reinventing himself, but I agree. He's been defending a lot, but he knows when to attack. For example, that's a very because he uses the other. He waits for the good moment, and he knows when to take the good moment.
But we remain talking about you. Why you having unstable situation during this season?
For me, one problem is that when I'm winning, I'm always trying to do more, trying to get more touches. But sometimes what I've been trying to work on is that when I'm winning by 1-2 touch or 2 touch, and I've just been pushing the other person, try to work in your distance, for example. See how it goes.
Over pressure, right? Because sometimes you want to you want to close out the bout too soon. You want to win too fast, and the opponent waits
Right.
for your mistakes.
Right. So that's mainly one of my biggest problems.
I like to find out, like, what's interesting to me is that you learned how to fence in US and you decided to go and move to France. Essentially, what is the transition? What is the difference, right? How was it? Did you notice it was different fencing? Was it more difficult? Talk a little bit about that transition, because usually, most people think, okay, if I'm a French national, I don't make the French team, I can always move to US college and then maybe make the US team or something. But you went the harder way. How was that?
Yeah. What happens is that in France, the juniors they all train together in Reims, and then the seniors, the top 12 seniors, they all train in Paris.
Okay,
So
Paris.
where I'm now here.
Where you're now, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm
okay.
in Paris, the Olympic campus,
People know, right?
and so we all train. So I train with Borel, Daniel Girand. Grumier is also a coach now. So
I'm sorry that I'm interrupting you. Sorry that I'm interrupting you. Can you tell me about Jarent? What happened to him? Why didn't he fence like for the past season?
So what happened is that Daniel Girand had the year before this season had a doping problem. He didn't show up. So what happened is that I was gonna say FDA, but no. The doping police, I would say, they come at a certain time. They come whenever they want, but you have to say, okay, right now I'm home from. They come, you have 30 minutes to be here, and then 3 strikes, and so he got his 3 strikes. So that's why it's very important when you do high level to the doping regulation. And so now what happened is that he got a. Yeah.
Are they allowed him?
What happened now is that he got into a car. No, so he should be back. He should be back into. So he fenced the season before the COVID, and he did the World in January because he needs to. That's for that.
So it's okay. Let's get back more so to what's the difference between French fencing in US and North American fencing.
So French fencing is very different to US because in US you try to get a scholarship, so you train very hard very early, which is very good. I think that one thing I could keep from the US is that I know how to work hard. Misha taught me this.
I think American kids have the best technique out of everybody in the world because they're taking 6-7 lessons a week.
I think that they're very complete. They know how to flick, how to touch anywhere. So
at the age of 14, a lot of kids can do everything.
But the problem with the US is that they're kind of like mechanics. They're very good, like engineers almost. They know how to do every touch. But setting it up or we talked about this chess earlier, trying to figure out your opponent, it's much harder for US because they think they're faster, which they are. So it works for juniors and cadets, especially at World Cups in Europe.
That's right.
They dominate. They dominate because they have the physical. But when you get to senior or end of junior, it's not the same idea because some are pros. Or everyone trains at the same amount of time almost.
No, every year when I go to cadet and European circuits or junior World Cups, we get Americans always in top 8 and most likely with medals. And on a senior level, the results are nowhere near the same.
Exactly, and I think the reason is being the US relies on his physical, but when you get to senior or end of junior, we all train the same amount, but the difference is that France or Europe, they understand very well the fencing strategy.
So you have some classes, some courses?
When you look at the
you, Romain, have some classes or courses about the strategy, how to build up strategy against certain fencers?
We do, yeah. So we don't, like many countries, to understand your opponent. But strategy class, we don't do it. It's independent. But what I would recommend is that what we do is that during bouting, practicing, I think many coaches tell you this, but you should take it to heart, is that work on something. Work on understanding what doesn't work for you, and then work on this so that this.
So not always just try to go and win in practice, right? You try
That's
to
usually
improve
as a
as a
fencer.
fencer.
It's completely useless because you rarely fence your best friend or your teammate from your club at a competition. I would say I rarely fenced a French fencer at a World Cup. So that's one thing. When you look at other countries like Italy, Hungary, or Ukraine, they put strategies in place. They know that, for example, Yannick Borel, they cannot attack him very well because he's stronger or he's taller. So what they do is they do a lot of defensive on him. They try to defend as much as possible, and it works. So this is the whole idea of young kids, especially young kids in the US, they need to try to understand how to put strategies in place, especially when it doesn't work, when it's not going well for their favor, like they're losing, I don't know, like 8-2, 8-5, 8-3. They need to say, okay, what have I been doing? I've just been attacking him for the past 8 touches and it doesn't work. Let me try to bring him into him attacking. I can still push him, for example, but this time I'm going to try to make him attack, like make him feel comfortable to attack and see how he attacks. Maybe he doesn't attack very well. And these are the questions you should be asking yourself during the match. So it takes a lot of time. It's very hard to ask these questions. I have difficulties. But the best way to feel more comfortable with this is by practicing. Say, okay, right now I'm just going to work on trying to make him attack me, or I'm going to work on a certain touch. These are all very good strategies to.
You know, Romain, you're completely right. I'm 100% agree with you. But there is the one thing what I want to say. Whenever I'm coaching at your fencing academy or whatever, I've been telling to the kids, like, why are you trying to win? It's pointless. It's just a practice. Try to work on this action, for example, where you're not good at, like you mentioned, right? But they still the people wants to stuck with the same skills they used to. You understand what I mean? Like they struggling with trying something else besides
Well,
what
that's
they've
a
been
lot
doing
of
for a long
kids
time.
struggling with the idea that they could practice something and still lose. They have that's totally different, right? That has to do with a lot of like self-image. Is that, for example, we have in every club there's some fencers that are quote unquote good fencers, right? And it's not good for their image to go and lose to a bad fencers just because they were practicing to make only a hand touch. They may try to do a couple of times, and then you're gonna start seeing them do long flashes and strong actions because they still want to win. But that, what do you ask from kids that are 13, 14 years old?
Well, yeah, you need some maturity to
exactly, right? It's difficult.
I mean,
you have girls or boys they want to also impress.
Yeah. Even me, at my level, I still have trouble because I have a certain ego. I like to make a lot of touches.
We all do.
But I would say for practice, you don't need to do the whole practice practicing something. You need to keep in mind that you need to have fun with fencing. And so for example, for me, the whole practice doesn't consist of doing one certain action I want to practice.
Okay.
I pick one person I want to practice on, and it can be for my whole
training,
day.
Right?
And the rest is fun, or really trying to win because I like the feeling of winning. But at least one bout in my day is just purely on working on something, and that's enough. Because if you think about it, if you work, let's say every day you do fencing and you work one time, you work 365 times, so it's good enough for me,
I agree.
You don't need to do.
You want to make sure that you can also stay in your mind, right? When you do a lesson and the coach gives you 5 different tactics, you'll be lucky if a student remembers one. You might as well just take one tactic at a time kind of deal.
Well, that's what the diary is for.
Yeah, that's what the diary is for. Yeah, you have to notice, you have to check every time when
forget,
you're in the practice, right?
So say,
Just to not
okay,
forget it.
today. So my philosophy is that when you go to practice, you have to know why you go to practice. You don't go to practice because you have to go to practice. Go to practice either because you want to have fun at fencing, or you want to work on something, or you want to achieve a goal. But don't do it because you have to do it. I see a lot of fencers. They try to get the scholarship, so they have to go to work to practice, and they work very hard. But sadly, that's not always the solution. If you don't have fun, you're probably not going to do result. If you don't work on something, you're probably not going to do result. But the diaries, like I was answering the question, the diary is good because like the coach you were saying, not to forget what you did good and what you did bad, and try to remember it. I wouldn't say do it every day, like open the diary, because I don't have time or I forget. But once every week, it's good, just jot something and just say, okay, this week it was pretty good. I like to continue working on this, or this I really keep doing bad. I'm going to try to find a solution,
Nice, very nice.
How do you also find that when you facing opponents from different countries, different parts of the world, right? Just like, there's different styles of fencing, like style of French or US, American, whatever. Do you find that there is some countries that you do better against, and there is some style-wise, and there's some styles, maybe Italian style, for example, like it's tougher for you? Is there such thing for you?
I think that the people that have been beating me a lot this season are Ukrainians.
Man, yeah, I will make some calls for you. Don't worry. Next time will be okay.
Yeah, Epee has been kicking my ass. Reslin has been kicking my ass.
Reslin got stronger, much stronger for the past season.
But yeah, they've been working very hard. It seems because physically they're very present during the whole time. They don't it's this idea of mentality and physical. They don't crack. They don't.
Yeah, they're quite strong that way.
Yeah, they are strong. I've been training with these people for a long time, and I know how they act.
Mistakes happen, and that's the prime. They're in their prime. I mean, they're not as young as me, for example. They're pretty old. They know how the game. But what I would say is that this is the whole try to limit the mistakes you do, and that's like my number one thing I'm trying to work on is to limit the mistakes, because if you don't do.
So at the beginning of the bout, you've been trying to invite them, right, to work out of their mistakes, right? If you're fighting against the Ukrainian people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're building up the strategy out of these actions, what they've done, or the work you've done, right? So it's based every time on your first action. Now, what do you think? How you feel yourself when you're fencing this kind of people? What do you feel before the bout? Are you emotionally under the pressure, or are you feeling yourself fresh, or are you thinking about what you have to do? You making a plan before, or are you still struggling with emotions?
And also, might as well also add, how did you feel in your very first senior World Cup, and how do you feel now at the World Cups as well? So kind of all together there.
So now honestly, mentally, it's not complete. It's not very stressful for me going to a senior World Cup, as weird as it sounds, because I've been going to a lot, and I think as you get older, you get less stress, better, and it's not going to be very useful. But I think, someone shouldn't just feel confident and say, stress, so I will probably win. I think stress is important.
Stress is important. That's true.
Can you hear me or no? Yeah.
Yeah, we do hear, but sometimes it's
only one voice at a time will transmit the best. So we're kind of waiting.
Okay. So yeah, stress is somewhat useful because you need to stay present. If you just think that you're the best and you're not relaxed, you're not necessarily going to win. But fencing against Ukrainians, for example, I'm not stressed going into it. I have my game plan. When it doesn't work, then it gets more interesting because then you're starting to to
But then you start engaging in a game with the rules that opponent provided you, right?
exactly. So it's always you never know how it's going to be. You shouldn't take someone lightly because you beat him 2-3 times. For example, like Epee, I did good against him in teams before. I was doing very well against him, but now in individuals, he found something against me. He said, "Okay, I'm going to." He's
You're taking your head off in
uh,
front of him.
this
Yeah.
French kid has been
For now.
annoying me, so I'm going to. Yeah, he took, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
I know this
but now
guy
my turn to
very
try to
good,
find something.
but he's also mentally unstable sometimes. It goes every time up and down. But what I want to talk about, like about you, about the emotions, right? The past season, you got top 8 in Vancouver, the World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah,
Didn't you?
yeah.
Yeah. What did you feel after this? Did you feel yourself more comfortable when you got back to your camp or to your country, or for the next competition? You felt like you stronger than the other people. What do you felt after this competition?
I felt good. I felt I understood. Like I felt that what I was working for is working. So I was going to continue this way. But yeah, you feel confident, especially in World Cups when you do a top 8. You feel like okay, I can do. The next step is to win a World Cup now. So it's true that when I don't do good this year, for example, when I do like
And we shouldn't forget that you were 22 that time, right?
A or top 64, of course, I've proven this that I can do top 8. I shouldn't do 20. You have to stay confident the whole time. You shouldn't do a World Cup saying, okay, I'm not going to win, or I'm not going to do as good as I think I am.
Can you repeat one more time, because
You should
it
be
still
proud
was
of what you're working for.
glitching.
You should be proud of like all the effort. Yeah. So I
You
said
were-
that you should
yeah.
be still like you shouldn't go into a competition. You shouldn't go into a competition to win or I'm not going to do as good because you're working hard usually. So you should be proud of the work you do, and usually that's like a booster for you. You should say, okay, what I'm working for is going to help me. But there's no secret. You have to work. I mean, even the best like Yannick Borel, he works just as hard as me, and so there's no secret potion, you know.
So how do you feel now that you trained for several years? Are you gonna base, like, if you can objectively judge the situation, do you feel like you will break in the top 4 for the French national team? You could be a consistent member representing the team, like in the future. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, so I've already been in the teams doing some World Cups for the French team. Now what I'm trying to prove is that I'm trying to prove two things. I'm trying to prove that I'm a good pawn for the team. I'm useful. You know, it's like
Very important. You have those tools.
yeah. Especially when you're young, you're trying to prove yourself to the older guys because well, you're trying to prove yourself to someone who did 2 times European champion, who's a world champion already, Olympic champion. He has nothing to
There's a
win
lot to
almost
prove
anymore,
there,
you know?
you know. A little
So
bit of intimidation.
I still haven't yeah, exactly. I still haven't won a World Cup, so you know, to make him feel like confident in me, it's a work. And then the second thing, of course, is that I'm trying to win a World Cup next year. That's for the season. That's what I'm hoping, and that's probably what I'm going to.
And on a French national circuit, like I actually haven't had a chance to look, but how are your results of the French national championships or the French Cup, if whatever the situation be? How is that going?
I was number 3 on the French ranking, but the ranking is a little different in France because the top 4, Yannick Borel or the older ones, they don't do the national competition.
They don't do
because
national competition.
Their
Okay.
objective is to.
This is
don't
part
do it
of the
because their
system.
objective is to win World Cups.
Okay.
Yeah. So how the system works in France is that you have objectives. In the US, it's all based on points.
Yes.
So you have to participate to all the NACs. You have to do all the World Cups, and then they take the best result, and then that's the team. In France, that doesn't work like this. In France, the head coach, so here where we live, is the one who chooses also the people in his team. So the one who's giving me lesson is also the one who's going to choose who's going to the Olympics, who's going to go be in the French team for.
You got to make sure the guy likes you.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
So you work with him, but he understands. He treats everybody the same.
Oh, of course.
Same, okay.
He watches the result, but yeah,
everybody is
have
equal.
to.
Okay.
You have to be. You shouldn't be in his bad side, otherwise you get kicked out. But for example, Grenier, talking about Grenier, he's probably going to be our coach maybe next year.
Oh, that's exciting. You a French grappist? There's something maybe you could take from him.
Yeah. So for sure, it'd be interesting to train with a very, very good French grip fencer.
I know that Christine Grumier taking lessons to being a coach.
Yeah, no, he is a coach now.
No,
what happens is
I know he's taking lessons to be a coach. Like Sikar gives him a lesson. No,
he's already a coach. He trains the pentathlon.
Pentathlon, okay.
Pentathlon, yeah.
Because in pentathlon they have fencing.
Yeah.
So he trains the pentathlon. And so maybe next year he will train the fencing. But anyways, in France, the system, how it works is that which is a good thing, because I think that young kids, US or even older kids, I wish they could, choose their competitions to plan their year better, because they have so many competitions that, of course, there's going to be trash. You're not going to do good every time. The idea is to do good at one competition you plan to.
Okay, so it means
that's how it is in France. We don't have many competitions. Competitions we go to, but the competitions we go to are very important. We estimate that we train the whole month for it, or 2 months or whatever. So we need to win, and that's where we get the mentality.
Okay, so you're putting the whole
US
energy,
especially when you get older, it's different. Like the whole energy, the whole work you put in for 3 months, 2 months.
Yeah, so this is direction.
Like you said, selecting an objective and you train towards a particular objective. That is very nice. Instead of you just have to go volume, you chose a couple of things that you have to reach, and you might actually produce better results. That's very interesting.
So in the US, I feel like you're always trying to do better points than the people in front of you. You're always trying to get more points.
You end up going to every competition just correcting 10 points, 20 points. It's actually not getting better.
It's a math problem almost. They try to I went to go coach some kids from NYFA, like Skylar or that they always as soon as they lost, they try to calculate how many points they won, for example. But in France, it doesn't work like this. In France, it purely works on medals, or like from when you do a top 8, that's when you start to calculate points. Under it, it's almost 0 points almost. So it's only based on results, and so that's why competitions are much more meaningful for us. But you understand to concentrate your stress much more, because when you work for 3 months and then you do first day or top 128 or top 64, for sure it's much harder to digest, But that's the good thing about it, is that now you understand how to digest defeat.
So what is also the difference in a training regimen, or in general, what is your training regimen like? How many maybe private lessons do you do in a week, or do you do 2 practices or 1 practice per day, or how like that?
Tell us about the schedule more.
Yeah, the schedule of your work.
So I used to do a lot more lessons when I was in the US with Misha and Dima.
I was just gonna say, you definitely probably did a lot more lessons in US, right?
Yeah, I did I did 4 lessons, I think, in a week. 3-4 lessons in a week.
That's quite a bit.
2 by Misha and 2 by Dima, something like this. In a week in France, you have 2 for sure private lessons, maybe 3 sometimes when you're not when you're not close to a competition.
But are the lessons like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, that type of lesson?
No, they're more like a good 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh,
So
very
it's
solid.
they're longer. It's much longer. It's much more. It's much less mechanic.
It's
You
more
do a
about
lot more
mind.
cardio. I feel like. Yeah, it's to try not to, like the idea of a good lesson is to get yourself very physically tired, so that mentally you don't crack. It's like when you have to do an exercise.
You'll make good decisions even if you're very tired.
Right. So that's the idea. It's the idea to work in your red zone. You should always try to get like a lesson working in your red zone.
Beautiful. I couldn't agree more. Like, I love that mentality, honestly. I notice with my kids especially, and like some kids do well, they oftentimes will go at a knack especially. They win a very difficult match. They had a difficult point. They go, they win, they exert maximum amount of energy. And then the very next bout, they might actually have an easier opponent, but they have no energy, they exert, and now they fence so much worse. That's a beautiful way to train. I love that.
Right. So it's this idea of it's this idea of lucidity. To keep your mind fresh. To how to oxygen yourself. So these are all things we work on. So I wouldn't recommend like here in France, I wouldn't do more than two to three lessons, even if I wish I could.
Yes.
Because it's very tiring physically and mentally. That at the end you're you're good. You don't need to. Usually you have like a second training. So what we do in France, we have two. So we have it on Tuesday.
Can you
Thursday.
repeat, please?
You have two
So these are also very.
Two trainings, right? You have two trainings.
So on Tuesday, Thursday, yeah. No. So on Tuesday, Thursday, we have bouts. So we only have two bouts. We don't do a lot of bouting.
2 days. 2 days.
Because,
okay.
Yeah, we have it on Tuesday, Thursday, because it's very intense also. Because you take the top 12 French fencer and you make them fence all the time together. It's very tiring. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
Then the Monday, we have like a cardio. Wednesday, we have a physical workout. And then Friday, we usually have like also like a like a ladder, also like
coordination exercises.
Coordination, right? Also like also sometimes weights. Depends. I think a lot. Me personally, during the week, I do a lot of stretching. I think it's very, very important. It helps you to prevent you from doing injuries. I see a lot of the US or other countries, they get easily injured. I think one of the reasons is because they don't know their body very well, or they don't do a lot of stretching. And so they work in the pain and then they get injured.
Okay, that's nice.
So you talked about a little bit about that you do like a 45, maybe an hour long lesson. How about that's because you're already training at the Olympic facility. There's big hopes from coaches for you. How's training looking for the younger kids, right? So not everybody in France that's fencing training at the Olympic facility. Maybe you've been to some clubs or schools in France. How's their training? Do they still get these longer lessons, or is it a little bit different?
So, I think the level in France, it's much, much worse when you're younger compared to the US, because you don't train hard. You just have fun. You're not trying to work for a scholarship, so it's purely for fun, and I think that's one good thing. But then when you get to the junior level, you have to move. So you say goodbye to your mom. You say you move to a different city. So this whole idea, it's what makes France very good, I think.
And that happens around like what, 13, 14 years old?
So you move when you're junior one cadet 2. So a little older, but you live with the 12 top juniors. So that's what I did when I moved.
The same facility where you are right now?
No, so it's a different facility in France. It's called Reims. It's another city. It's like 1 hour from Paris. And so what your objective is trying to do is to kick out one of the top 12 older fencers to take his spots, because there will only be 12 fencers training in this facility. So what happens is that if you're a young kid and you want to continue, you have to take one of the guys out.
This is
I didn't hear.
all about the life. It's strongest will survive. That's how it works. But can you tell us about the financial situation for the people who is in the team? So how it works? Are you getting some money for competition, or they are provide some flying tickets, accommodation, and so on?
So in France, you don't have unless you're very, very, very good, like maybe like Yannick Borel, he's able to get sponsored, like other big fencers like Einzer or...
Yeah, but then you have to be top 16 in the world at least for that, right?
Right. So when you're not as strong in France, you do get your plane tickets paid for when you're qualified to go to the Senior World Cup. But for example, for me, I continued my studies and I finished, and so now I'm working. So I work in the morning. I work from 8 to 12 or 8 to 1 o'clock, and sometimes a little later. And then I do my training in the afternoon. But
your accommodation is taken care of, like the Olympic Center. Do you pay for rent for this apartment that you have?
So no. So this is paid by the French the French.
Federation,
the country.
So basically you on your own, right? So you have to work in the morning and then you spend your time for fun, right? For training, as you mentioned earlier. So it's quite busy schedule for you.
Yeah, so I said that in the afternoon, you're right. Yeah, so I said that day it's purely for me, for my future life. So in France they do it good. They understand that you need to study at the same time, and so that's no problem to them. Some sports they won't allow it, like running or judo or like gymnastics.
Okay.
Certain sports they can't because they.
Nice. Well, Romain, how do you feel so far? You're not too tired yet?
No, I'm good. No, I'm good. I'm okay. But yeah.
Yeah, it's getting dark, right? I see that you.
More difficult as we go on.
Yeah, we really appreciate that you join us today, and a lot of thanks to you. So you are an incredible person, incredible fencer, and we wish you to continue at the top level. We wish you to go to Olympic Games this next year, and get the medal. Definitely, and get the medal.
Bring my family for Paris World Cup. We will be watching you fence there. We'll take some pictures, sign some autographs. One day it will be very important to have that.
Yeah, I hope so. It's my dream. That's what I work for.
Your dream will come true. Don't worry. Your dream will come true. Just you have to work on your dream, like you've been doing it.
Yep.
And you'll get it. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate this, and I hope we see you soon in live.
Yeah. Yes, I hope so too.
All right, awesome job. Thank you so much, and we'll stay in touch. Next year, when the season resumes, we'll do another one of these, and you'll tell us about your new journey experiences. All right?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Take care.